Okay, I'll call a meeting of April 29th, 2020 to order. I'm going to start off by, let's see, reading a preamble here into the record. Good evening. As chairman of the Wolfeboro Board of Selectmen, I'm declaring that an emergency exists, and I am invoking the provisions of RSA 91-A:2, Roman numeral 3B. Federal, state, and local officials have determined the gatherings of 10 or more people pose a substantial risk to our community in its continuing efforts to combat that spread of COVID-19. In concurring with their determination, I also find that this meeting is imperative to the continued operation of town government and services, which are vital to public safety and confidence during this emergency. As such, this meeting will be conducted without a quorum of this body physically present in the same location. At this time, I also welcome members of the public accessing this meeting remotely. Even though this meeting is being conducted in a unique manner under unusual circumstances, the usual rules of conduct and decorum apply. Any person found to be disrupting this meeting will be asked to cease the disruption. Should the disruptive behavior continue thereafter, that person will be removed from this meeting. Please note that all votes that are taken during this meeting shall be done by roll call vote. We'll start the meeting with the roll call of attendance. Linda Murray?
I'm present in a room by myself.
Thank you. Paul O'Brien?
Good evening, everyone. I'm present in a room by myself.
Thank you. Dave Senecal?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm in a room, my office down in the lower level.
Thank you. Dave Bowers? Is Dave not with us tonight?
He's there. He
He's
just
not.
doesn't look connected.
He doesn't have his mic on.
Okay, I'll see if he can join us with audio in a few minutes here. And Brad Harriman is here in a room by myself also. We'll start out, Mr. Town Manager, is there a need for a non-public session this evening?
Mr. Chairman, this evening there is no need for non-public.
Okay, thank you. Next thing on our agenda is consideration of minutes of April 15th, 2020. Anybody have any comments or corrections?
Yes, I have two. The first one is on page 13. It's the third paragraph up from the bottom. It's the second sentence I'd like to have removed, and I would like it replaced with, "There is a surplus balance in your report." And then the next line, and then I would like inserted February monthly, and the rest of it can stay the same.
Okay.
And then on page 22, the third paragraph down is when Mr. Sullivan was telling us that Mary DeVries' mic was not working. I'd like the last two sentences scratched, and it should read, "If you chain off the Cary Beach entrance, that would lead people to park along Forest Road." And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Linda. Anybody else have any comments or corrections?
Mr. Chairman, I have just a correction of the spelling of my name. Page 15, second paragraph. Aside from that, everything's fine. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, anybody else? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of April 15 as amended.
I'll
Do
second
we have a
that.
second?
Second.
So a motion by Linda Murray, second by Dave Senecal. Any other discussion? All right, we'll do a roll call vote. Linda Murray?
Yes.
Paul O'Brien,
Yes.
Dave Senical,
Yes.
Dave Bowers. Dave hasn't joined us yet. Okay, and Brad Harriman votes yes. Next on our agenda is the bulk vote, which just has manifests in it from April 17th and April 24th.
Move we approve that?
We have a motion by Dave Senical. Do I have a second?
Linda Murray seconds.
Second.
Okay, motion by Dave Senical, second by Linda Murray. Any other discussion? Have a roll call vote to approve. Linda Murray,
Yes.
Paul O'Brien,
Yes.
Dave Senical,
Yes.
Dave Bowers, and Brad Harriman votes yes. Okay, next on our agenda is public input, limited to 3 minutes per person, not to exceed 15 minutes in total. Are there any requests that came in electronically or anything to us?
Brad, you have one that came in from Suzanne Ryan. Hold on, I can bring it up in my email.
Hello,
Yes,
Oh, are you there, Suzanne?
I am.
Okay, then I'll let you bring up your public comment.
Okay, I will capsulize this in the interest of time and request that the full email be printed into the minutes if that's possible, please.
I think we can do that.
Okay, thank you. Basically, the email was about your last meeting on the 15th regarding the expenditure at Dockside, money surplus from the warrant article for restrooms. Being that the restrooms are completed and operational, there is a surplus of money that is being used for the beautification project down there at the parking lot, which is a wonderful project. However, I quoted you the statutes that I think that it's not permissible to do that, and that surplus money, whatever the figure is, I guess there was a discrepancy, whatever the figure is required to go back to the general fund to offset the coming tax rate. You've all gotten a copy of the email, so I didn't feel it was necessary to read it. That was a special warrant article that has certain qualifications to it, and so I don't feel that money can be used for an unspecified purpose. We had that discussion at town meeting 2 years in a row. Nothing was ever brought up about the beautification to the parking lot. And through the capital improvements program and the discussion about the extension of docks and so forth, there's never been that kind of a discussion. At any rate, the upshot of it is I would ask the Board of Selectmen if they would.
Go there and go get it.
Hello?
Yeah, go ahead, Suzanne. You can keep going.
Oh, I'm sorry. The last statement where I asked the Board of Selectmen to request David Ford to, in good faith, take the money out of his budget to complete that project and give some reassurance to the taxpayers and voters that in confidence when we're told about a project that's what the project would be. That's it.
Okay, thank you.
in a nutshell.
Okay, thank you, Suzanne. Yeah, we can definitely put your full email into the minutes, record them into the minutes, so it's becomes part of the record. So,
I'll make sure I do that, Brad.
okay, thank you, Amy.
Michelle.
Chairman,
So
can I ask a question?
Michelle,
So the question is, will the board move forward with looking into having this happen?
I guess my comment, Suzanne, would be that, yes, we're definitely gonna look into this, look at the wording, really look at the wording of the warrant articles and determine if that can or cannot be done. We're not doing it right now at this minute, obviously, but I would say from the discussions we had on April 15th are that and the concerns that were raised, we will be looking into this and having a discussion about it. Anybody else have any comments on that?
well,
Paul?
Yeah, just a question for Suzanne. Good evening, Suzanne. How are you?
Well, thank you.
Suzanne, I read your letter, and I just want to make sure I'm clear about one of the statements, one of the things you said. First paragraph, first sentence, it says at the Board of Selectmen meeting 4/15/20 regarding warrant article 17, Selectman Murray brought to the attention and with objection, or did you mean to say without objection to the board, the warrant article? Is it with objection? Nobody objected to that.
I believe she was bringing it to the forefront because she objected to the manner in which it was being handled. But
I did bring that up, and I had the discussion with Dave Ford, and I think the minutes show that we didn't agree on whether that was the appropriate place to take the funds out.
Okay, so it was with objection. Okay, I was just trying to be clear. I misread your sentence, Suzanne, and I apologize for that.
no apology necessary.
Brad?
Yes, Dave?
Yeah, I don't think we've seen all the final numbers on that project and stuff yet. I don't think those have been brought forward. So I think until we have all of those numbers and what the surplus was and where we might be taking monies from to complete that project, at this time, I don't think we can make a decision anyway. That's my feeling. And I certainly think that I don't think any of us after the last meeting, I think we're all in agreement that we're going to look at that warrant article and what's left over before any of the other money's spent for that beautification. But we don't have all the numbers yet, I don't believe. Do we, Jim?
That's correct, you do not. Dave Ford and Finance Director Troy Neff are working on reconciling that entire project. Once they get the reconciliation completed on the project, you'll have a complete breakdown of all expenses associated with it.
Okay, thank you.
So it sounds like that might be a potential agenda item for our next meeting then, if we have the numbers by then, to take a good look at it and have a discussion and kind of go from there.
Mr. Chairman, I don't think the next board meeting, being next week, May the 6th, I don't think we're going to be ready at that point, but I would say definitely by the 20th of May, the second meeting, we should be.
Okay.
That sounds good.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have any other public? Paul, yeah?
Paul, for clarity, I think there's, just so that I'm clear in my mind, there's two things here on the table. Number one is we have a warrant article and expenditures that are lined up against that warrant article. That should generate a document. And that'll either be ticked and tied that we spend exactly what the warrant article is, or we have a surplus and we have a deficit. That's part one. Part two is really need to know what this additional artifact edifice is, how much it costs. And I think that's where I think Ms. Ryan is bringing up, I would like to know. I want to know how much it costs. And then the question is, how do we square that cost? We could either, one, uninstall it, which I suppose we could do that. Number two, find it in the operating budget. Or three, we could find it someplace else, and I don't know where the someplace else is. But it's the cost that I think we need to get clarity on.
Yeah, I think those are all good points to have during that discussion that we, when we have it on our agenda on May 20th. Okay, do we have any other public input or anyone else online with us tonight?
Yes. Scott Robinson, the president of the Antique and Classic Boat Society.
Hi, Scott.
We had a meeting with the board of directors, not in person, but online. And we have all agreed that, except one, that we should cancel the July 25th event.
Okay.
Also, we're going to do whatever you folks want anyway, but in saving you having to worry about it, we maybe could hold it at our September time frame.
Okay, that sounds good.
September event.
Yep.
That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you for the update on that.
All right, you hopefully will let us know. I assume it's off because there's more than 10 people attend that, so.
Yeah, we have a whole list of temporary event permits that we're going to be talking about and setting up task force tonight to address these things and kind of see where we're going to go with them all.
Well, I'm trying to make it easy for you.
You did. You took one off the plate for us, so thank you.
All right. Have a good evening. Thank you.
Okay, do we have anybody else online that wants to speak to us tonight during public input? I'm seeing a caller 02 popping up that's talking, but I'm not hearing anything through it. Is there, Matt, do you know if there's somebody else out there trying to talk to us?
I don't see anybody else, no.
I think O2 was.
I think you're getting delayed watching TV, and they left their microphone on. So caller 2, you could mute your microphone. That would help us a bunch.
Okay, thank you.
Suzanne.
Caller 2 is gone.
Okay. All right, we'll move on to the next item. There were no board appointments this evening, so we'll go on to new business. First one will be discussion.
On that.
Oh, certainly, Paul.
Sorry to do this. Timothy Goodwin. I noticed in the minutes of the meeting of last week or 2 weeks ago, whenever we did this, that your name was not appointed to the Cable Franchise Task Force. Did we not put it in the minutes, Timothy, or did we not appoint you? Timothy Goodwin. Never mind, let's move on. Thank you.
Okay. We'll hear from him later on at some point. We ask that. Okay, new discussion, new business, temporary events approved and future approvals. Task force number 5. Mr. Pinio, were you going to run with this one for us?
So, Mr. Chairman, we received a temporary event permit request from Calvary Bible Church to hold a virtual National Day of Prayer. This would fall under our task force number 5 once it's established.
Okay.
Right now, they're not looking to host it with people in place. It all appears to be virtual, and I believe you do have the permit in your packet.
Yeah, that's one thing when I read through that, it looked like it's going to be a combination, because they had a comment in there about social distancing will be taken into consideration. That's why I was a little confused when I read that talk about live stream TV, and then sound like it might be a group gathering also.
Jim, do you want me to speak to it? I talked to the representative.
Yeah, just go for it, Amy.
All right, so they had contacted me because normally the National Day of Prayer, the churches do outside, and they kind of pop up around town, and they usually get a permit. So this time they want to kind of live broadcast, and from what I understand, it will be a couple of different pastors from churches, no public attending, and then the live broadcast. So before I sent the permit out and around to get approved like we normally do, since we were talking about temporary event permits, I brought it on the agenda tonight so we could just check and see if you were okay with that. And if so, then we'll move it to May 6th for the approval.
Brad?
Personally, yes, go ahead, Linda.
Is it going to use any of the town property? Is it still going to be
Yes.
at the town gazebo?
Yes. Yes, if they did it somewhere else that wasn't our property, I guess we wouldn't have to worry about the permit. But the issue is it's going to be on Cape Park. So we always have the selectmen approve anything that goes on in Cape Park.
I thought it had to do with any outdoor event, and I just wasn't sure from what you said whether it was still at the gazebo. Is there any way they're going to ensure that public is not going to come into Cape Park while this is going on?
Well, since the permit is going to have to go around for approval, I could set that restriction to them. I mean, I think I would still need to get the insurance, copy of the insurance, and then ensure that it's just not a public event that has more than 10 people.
Mr.
Yeah, I
Chairman,
guess that's, yes,
I believe,
go ahead.
yeah, Mr. Chairman, I believe that there could be another issue here. We don't know what is going to happen with the governor and his stay-at-home orders and gatherings. There could be, I'm certainly not speaking on his behalf, but there is a possibility that, religious events could take place going forward. We don't know that yet. We won't know until all this information is updated. So we also felt, based on that it's timely to have this discussion now. And then once those orders come out by the end of the week, we'll have better direction as where we can go or can't go.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And I also think, just for timing and everything, as they're looking to have this on May 7th, that we probably should have it on our agenda for May 6th is our next meeting. And then we'll have that information from the governor to help make our decision on it. Anybody else have any comments?
I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay by me.
Okay, so I guess by consensus, we'd say that, have Amy reach out and get this put into our agenda and for next week, and talk about it then some more. Okay. Next is a, let's see. We also had at the bottom of this to motion to appoint task force members before we move on to our next discussion. There's application. There's another water ski tournament application which is pending. So do we need to do a motion now to appoint task force members? Is that, yeah, I guess that'd be our, okay.
Mr. Chairman, that would be the next area where we would go. So as alluded to, the governor by Friday will be making some announcements regarding the stay-at-home order, and we'll have better ideas of what we may or may not be able to do at that point. We all are very well aware that we've got a lot of activities coming down the pike here in the next month, and we felt it was important as staff to get the Board of Selectmen involved with us in some of these events. I think a lot of our stakeholders in the community are doing the right thing with their temporary events, and I think we need to follow suit. So we're looking at establishing 6 task forces. Task force number 1 would be to evaluate the 4th of July parade and fireworks. At this point with the 4th of July fireworks and the parade, I think we all know that it's going to be difficult to hold this event with any level of social distancing and do it safely for the citizens and visitors in our community. So one of the things that we want this task force to be able to do is to look at this event, these 2 events, and determine if there's any possible way that we can hold it, and help guide us into making a decision.
Can I make a comment? Why don't you check also with Mary DeVries and the Chamber of Commerce, because they're very much involved in the financial aspects of that.
Well, that's part of this. The request for membership on this particular task force is Justin Chaffee from the Parks and Rec Department, Chief Rondo from the Police Department, Chief Scanzi from the Emergency Management Department, Shelley Rondo as our health officer, Harold Chamberlain as the coordinator of the parade, a member of the Chamber of Commerce, and I need 2 Board of Selectmen members who would be willing to participate in this particular task force. That takes a large percentage of our stakeholders in this, and then we can help to guide the decision-making process to help Christine out as well, whether or not they need to order fireworks. So we'd like to have 2 Board of Selectmen members who would be interested in participating in this committee.
Okay, do we have a couple of members that would like to volunteer for this to start with?
I think Mr. O'Brien.
I'll volunteer.
Okay, Paul O'Brien is one. Thank you, Paul. Do we have another one that's willing to?
If nobody else is willing, I'm willing, but there are other ones down below that I have more of a commitment to be on. But if nobody else will, I will do this one.
I guess the question.
You need
Go ahead,
somebody
Dave.
to, I mean, as Linda has said, I have some interest down further, but if you need somebody, I'll help out as well.
Okay. What, Mr. Pinio, what type of time frame would you be having these kind of meetings to go over these events and stuff?
That's really going to be that's really going to be incumbent on what the task force is able to do. You know, if it boils down that the task force wanted to meet in the evenings, they certainly have the autonomy to do that. The only thing that I do have to advise, and I did get guidance from legal counsel on this, We will have to post the meetings in advance, and we will have to record minutes, just as an appointed board of the Board of Selectmen. So I did get that clarification. So we will need minutes recorded and the meetings posted in advance, and we will take care of that.
Okay.
So right now, I guess I'm looking at, if I understood this correctly, we've got Paul and Linda who are interested in the task force number 1. Is that correct?
And I guess my feeling is that both Dave Senecal and I have said we would do task force 1, but yet we have more interest down below. And so I don't want to get signed up for too many when other people want to be part of it. So that's kind of why I said I will do it if nobody else wants to. But I have some others down below I prefer to do. So maybe we've got to kind of go on down the line and sort it out then.
So that's just what I was thinking, Linda. I think that's a good idea to go down through and see how many people get and fill them in from there.
Okay. So task force number 2, that would be looking at the Granite Man, the Granite Kid. Again, this would be Justin Chaffee and Deputy Fire Chief Tom Zotti. And we'd need 1 Board of Selectmen member as well. And as well, I would most likely be participating in this. And this again would be to determine whether or not we hold the event. Parks and Rec has got some logistical challenges. They've got some deadlines that they've got to meet in order to make this happen and get people registered. So it is kind of a challenging one.
Uh-huh. Was this one on anyone's wish list at this point?
Wish list.
If not, I'll take this one as long as I can talk to to Justin and Tom Zotti there about trying to meet in the evening, because that's my only thing is I'm tied up during the days all day long. So I'll take this one if you guys like.
Okay, I will coordinate with those 2 staff members and see if we can make that happen, Brad. Task force number 3. Task force number 3 is going to be looking at the beaches, and I want to be clear about this. This task force is looking at the beaches related to COVID-19 and the pandemic. It's not dealing with the ordinance. It's not dealing with the vote that just took place. This is strictly dealing with how we handle the beaches related to COVID-19. At this point, it's looking like we're going to have Christine Collins, Deputy Chief Zotti, and we need 1 Board of Selectmen member who would be interested in participating in this.
I'd be happy to do that if nobody else wants to.
Okay, thank you, Dave. So I have Dave Bowers on the task force number 3.
Task force number 4. This is going to help Christine look at her summer day camp and her programs to help her make a decision if we can hold these events with some modifications, how this is all going to work. Again, we may get more guidance from the governor's office by the end of the week on these, but we still have to look at it for Wolfeboro and decide how we want to do this. So this particular task force at this point is made up of Christine Collins, myself, and we'd like to have 1 Board of Selectmen member.
That's one I'd be interested in. I have grandkids and kids in a lot of those types of programs and have done a lot with children's programming.
Okay, thank you, Linda. Task force number 5. This is really quite under control right now, but task force number 5 is looking at temporary event permits. Amy Capone Lucio, myself, and we'd like 1 Board of Selectmen member.
I'd be interested in that one.
Okay. Thanks, Dave. And the last one, task force number 6. This is probably going to be one of the more challenging task forces. This is going to be looking at social distancing in Wolfeboro for the summer. Specifically, we're going to be looking at town sidewalks, roadways, parking spaces, parking lots, town docks, and parks such as Cape Park, Clark Park. At this point, this task force is gonna be made up of myself, Chief Scanzi of Emergency Management, Chief Rondo, a representative from Department of Public Works. We'd like to have 2 Board of Selectmen members. We'd also like to have representation from the Chamber of Commerce and representation from a takeout restaurant. So I'd really need to have 2 Board of Selectmen members who would be interested in this committee.
I would be interested in this committee.
I would as well.
Okay.
So we've got Linda and Dave Senical. Thank you.
So I think that covers it. I guess the question would be back on task force number 1. You know, we originally had Paul and Linda looking at this. Linda's got her time divided up amongst 3 different task forces at this time. Is there anybody who would be interested in replacing Linda on the task force number 1?
I said that I would step in, so I will go with that one then.
Dave Senical? Okay, that works.
Okay.
I think that breaks it up a little bit more. And that's what I have regarding the task forces. I'll be reaching out to the other stakeholders and work on getting some meetings scheduled, and obviously awaiting update from the governor regarding stay-at-home orders.
Okay, would you like to have a motion that we appoint these Board of Selectmen members, as we just discussed, to these 6 different task forces to have it official?
Yeah, I think we probably need to do that, Brad.
Okay. So I would entertain a motion from somebody to do that if we could.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion from Dave Senical and a second by, was it Dave Bowers? To
Yes.
appoint the various selectmen that we just discussed on task force numbers 1 through 6. Any discussion? A roll call vote. Linda Murray,
Yes.
Paul O'Brien, I didn't hear Paul, did he?
Oh, your mic's not on. There
Yes.
it is.
Sorry, Brett. Yes,
Oh, thank you. Dave Senical,
I said yes.
Yes.
Dave Bowers,
Yes.
and Brad Harriman votes yes. Okay, thank you, everybody. Okay. So we've done discussion number B. Let's see, discussion, town Board of Selectmen's communication with the public. Mr. Pinio, are you going to address this one?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. So I think one of the things that we've got to be doing a much better job at going forward, we need to be clear with our citizenry about, one, these task forces that we're working through, and the messages that are going to be delivered. As well, I think the Board of Selectmen and myself need to sit down and have a conversation regarding what messaging we should be delivering to the community relative to the town management. I think emergency management is doing a good job at working with Huggins Hospital and getting the messaging out. But I think we as the town have got to do a better job at getting messaging out about local government and how we're functioning and how we're watching out for our voters and our citizenry during this difficult time. I'm open to suggestions from the board at this point, how we would move forward. I know that there was a message that was circulated around regarding a letter that we talked about reading into the record. But I think we've got to be much clearer with the community and try to instill greater confidence that we're working for them during this time that they're struggling out there.
I think one of the things that the board should do is to see if they could put together a list of services that a person who comes up from, let's say, Massachusetts is going to quarantine themselves for 14 days. What services do we have in town that will get their food and help them get whatever else they need without them going into the stores? And I saw in the Granite State News last week there was a service that was advertising, but I think it would help those people coming to join us, because we need to welcome those summer residents, seasonal residents. They've always been part of our community, but we need to be able to provide them with services so they can self-quarantine for the 14 days and then come into the season and join us for the summer.
Mary DeVries put together a semi-farcical list, but also a real list of 101 things to do in Wolfeboro. And you might see if there's something in that could be condensed. Cut a lot of different things that are worthwhile. Go to the museums, go to shops, go to the art galleries and stuff.
I kind of agree with Linda's thought. Pretend just for a second you're driving into town, you're coming up here to visit your summer home or whatever. The first thing you're gonna be confronted with is a sign that says quarantine. And I think I can't find in my mind any person who's going to say, no, I'm not going to do that. I think they'll do that right after they go get groceries.
Sure. Yes.
And I think we have to anticipate that there are people who don't know what to do when they get here. And I think it would be very helpful. And I'm not sure the town should be doing this, but it needs to be done. We need to have a way that people can get status. I offered a thought to a few people this morning that said, use this GoToMeeting platform, the one we have right now. Invite every and any shop owner that wants to advertise their business. There's only one thing they have to be able to do, is be able to take online orders. Give them 30 seconds to say, hi, I'm XYZ company. If you want to buy groceries from me, here's how you get in touch with me. 30 seconds. And then you take this whole thing, put it on a YouTube video, and stick it on the police sign when you come into town or something. But I think, Linda, you're spot on. I think we need to show people that we care about ourselves and we care about them, and we want to make it easy for them to do business with us.
Yeah, I agree. I think those are great points. I'm kind of wondering, could this kind of fall into task force number 6 to add that into some of the discussion there of creating our social distancing and how we're going to deal with it this summer, but maybe more outreach type thing, getting the information out to these people?
That's a possibility. I think task force number 6 is going to be very labor intensive. I think they've got a lot of work in front of them. It would be nice if we could work on getting a model in place so that when they got done with their work, we could simply launch that model so that they don't have to do their work and then spend a couple weeks figuring out how they launch that model. So if we can, and I can work on that with some of our staff members, how we make that happen in advance. I think that would be helpful.
All right, that sounds good. Any other comments or?
Jim, you brought up the question of better communication. What could you, for some clarity, what do you have in mind? What in your view do you think we need to get, a ton better at?
That's a good question, Paul. I know we've been hearing from some of our citizenry that they would like to see better signage out there. For example, at the beaches, you know, that the beaches are actually closed due to COVID-19. We as staff had a conversation about that today. So we kind of worked on some of those items. But, you know, I think we've got to get back at delivering it on our website, on social media. And I know Matt had been involved in a webinar. I think we probably will have to do that as well to be able to sit down with some of these stakeholders and deliver the message to our citizenry on this platform. Again, I think emergency management has done a good job. They've done a bang-up job compared to a lot of our other communities around. But I think that the citizens want to start hearing from local government and not just from emergency management or governor's office. They want to hear what we're doing for them right now as local government and how we're watching our pennies.
I think if I look at it in the communication, and I guess it goes off of that document you wrote, Paul, talking about what we are looking at when we're looking at our safety of our employees, ensuring the safety of our residents, and then watching our financial budget. And I think that's where we're focused, and we need to make sure we keep on emphasizing that to the public. That's our main areas that we're being keyed in on. So that's kind of when I saw this, is that from time to time we're going to be doing different things and focusing on it, and we need to speak up and tell the public that's what we're doing at this time.
Is that where you were going with it, Jim?
Yeah, it is, Paul. I guess I took the long route to get there, but absolutely, I think we've got to answer those to our citizenry.
You know, I think if I could, I think there's we have, and I believe this in my heart. We're really lucky in this town because we have a whole bunch of different media outlets that we can use, ways to get information out to the public. We have a Granite State News, and the frequency of the Granite State News is 1 week. So if we have messages that can live with a week, with a week between a week, then we could use that to get messages out there. As we know, there's going to be things that are going to be coming out in the next several days about this virus and reopening the state and statistics. That's kind of stuff doesn't wait a week. And so there are other media outlets that we probably need to get really active on and start thumping that information. So the question is, what do we want to say, and then through what outlet do we want to put it out? And Linda, thank you for picking up on my words. I do think the three things we ought to always be focused on is the safety of our people, safety of our residents, and watching our pennies. And maybe the watching our pennies, I'm just making it up here, the watching our pennies might be, best served as something that comes out in a media outlet where I can read about it once a week. Safety of our people and new stuff that's coming out, decisions that are getting made about events and things of that may not survive a week's time. It may be that we have to get those things out like quickly. So maybe the thing we do is we parse what we want to say and then figure out how we shoot the stuff out. And maybe we put together a little straw person outline of how we do that and look at it the next time we sit together.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, I think we have some ideas and some things to go on there. I think Mr. Pino that sound good to you?
Yep, that gives me something to work on. Thank you.
Okay. All right, next on our agenda is the beach policy discussion. So we have in our packets information that we started talking about at our last meeting also. Mr. Penny, are you gonna lead us off on this one, or?
So, Mr. Chairman, I'm not sure if you all got the latest document. I did email some information out late yesterday afternoon that came in from Linda. Quite frankly, the staff has worked hard on this, and Linda's worked hard on this. I think we've put together something that's going to work for our community. With that said, I'd like to hand it over to Christine Collins, Matt Sullivan to take this on.
Hi, thank you. It's Christine Collins, Parks and Rec Director. So we updated the policy to reflect the comments that were said at the last meeting. And then, like Jim stated, Linda had sent an email and we realized there were some changes that we needed to update. So thank you, Linda, for your hard work on that. And so what we're asking for today is if you could, if you would be willing to accept this document with the changes that we made, plus the additional ones that Linda is proposing, and that we just made a little bit clearer. If we can accept that, and then we did realize with her email that we knew that the beach rules needed to be updated. We were going to wait at a later date, but we just figured we would get those ready. So we want to get all this ready for the next meeting on May 6th, and then hope to have a public hearing on May 20th. I'm not sure if you got the beach rules, Jim. Was that passed out or were we waiting? I can't remember.
So I think the intent was to wait on the beach rules,
okay,
Christine, until the following meeting. But the intent of tonight is to get feedback on the policy, make sure that it reflects the conversation from a couple weeks ago, and then recognize also that Linda is dead on with what she's done. There are more amendments necessary to the ordinance. I had a chance to look at Linda's suggested amendments today. I think they make sense. I think they reflect the intent and the letter of the warrant articles as proposed. So what we'd propose to do is bring back 3 things to your meeting next week. The rules as amended, the beach policy, if there are any comments on that this evening, and the ordinance based on Linda's comments. At that time, we'd request a public hearing be set for May 20th, where we'd actually be able to adopt the ordinance portion, which requires that public hearing. But again, I think the intent of tonight is to make sure that the policy that we've drafted actually reflects what the board had requested at its meeting 2 weeks ago.
I have a question.
One question.
Go ahead, Linda.
Do you want to go, Paul? You can go first this time. I'll go after Paul.
Okay, Paul, go.
I was going to ask you to summarize what you had in your note.
Well, I guess he's looking at it. I mean, I thought Matt did a good job. We're looking at, we have rules, we have a policy, and we have an ordinance. So we need to make sure we keep the 3 separate. What I did was really the ordinance. The only concern I have about the policy is that we make it clear what applies to Cary and Albee, and a different thing applies to Brewster, because Brewster is a public beach. And in this, I'm saying, well, if I go to Brewster Beach, I don't need a dump pass and I don't need a placard, because I came from out of town and I have a right to that beach. So we can't have one policy in terms for all the beaches. And that is my only concern. I did talk to Christine, and at one place she was going to put the words Albee and Cary on top of it. And so if that happens, and then we pull out Brewster, so it's clear that there are different policies to relate to those beaches.
And I thank you for doing that, because for all intents and purposes, there is no change to present method of operation for Brewster Beach. No change. Nothing changed. Unless, right. And again, unless we have a COVID-19 conversation that we have to take place about beaches. But from a policy point of view, nothing changes. And we don't want to mix the 2 metaphors tonight. Linda, I was going to ask you. You had a conversation with one of the sponsors of the warrant article about the definition of resident or taxpayer, and I'll be frank with you. I got a little a little lost in the sauce on that one. Where did this thing wind up?
You know, I wrote it into the draft ordinance exactly how we wrote it on the warrant article. He gave me a definition that took in taxpayer, but I then run in, well, if I'm a taxpayer, as a taxpayer, I can have guests. Does that mean I own the Pickering house? I'm a taxpayer. I can get placards for my guests. And that was not what he intended. So I just left it that way and said, it's us as a board to decide on how we feel we want to go forward with this. So I I just put it in the way it was written. I will say I want to thank Suzanne Ryan. She helped me locate some of these documents. The reason why Brewster Beach is public is because we have a lease with them. They clearly state it's a public beach. It was from a term of 2001 to 2011, but then there is a sentence. It says, shall continue indefinitely until the lessor or the lessee notifies the other party 6 months in advance of the 30th of June of any given year that it no longer wishes to lease the property. So that there was some question of whether that holds. So that's in a lease. That's clear that that's how that beach has to run. And then the other ones have to run by what that warrant article said. And our only question is, how do we, if we take Mr. Hodder's second interpretation of what residents could be, we get the taxpayer, and then the question became guess. And that's when I also provided the 1990 warrant article that was passed by the town, which gave the definition of guest, which is what we could do. Shall include overnight guests at any hotel, motel, inn, boarding house, lodging house, tourist home, bed, breakfast, or housekeeping cottage situated in the town of Wolfeboro. And I kind of played off that. Albee Beach gives permission in the warrant article for people on the trail to be able to come onto the beach. So they really have to be three separate entities because there are different things covering the different beaches. So, and I just kind of pulled all these pieces together and sent them out to everybody so you'd have a chance to look at it and think about it. I sent it to Christine and Jim and to Matt so we can work on getting that ordinance pulled together.
Yeah, and Linda, I'm happy to work with you and Christine and Jim to make sure these things get amended appropriately. Once we really sit down tomorrow to take a look through, I'd like to work with you and making sure this is ready for next week and hopefully for a public hearing.
That would be good.
Okay.
When's the schedule? When do you think we need to have the public hearing teed up, Matt?
May 20th for the public hearing so we can get adequate public notice out. And I do just want to address one public comment that I see in the chat box about our method of advertising public hearings. I think we need to sit down and talk about that, what the best way is to actually effectively do this rather than just a simple public notice. So I'll talk to Christine, Jim, and we'll get a strategy together on how to adequately and also effectively notice this based on what we're dealing with right now.
I think I would also wonder if the paper wouldn't write an article that we're going to be coming forward with this new ordinance and that we're looking and heading for that date for a public hearing. I think is in many media as we can, because there may be some concern about how we develop this ordinance.
Yep, absolutely.
So Matt or Christine, can you, Matt or Christine, just so for the benefit of those people that are out in TV land, can you kind of like just summarize in kind of bullet point how this works?
Christine, it's up to you. You want me to take it?
I hate to put you on the spot. I'm sorry for doing
No, that's fine. But you're right. There might be somebody new tuning in. So we've tried to boil down I'm going to go based on the policy, obviously, right now, recognizing some amendments do need to be made to this, but we are treating the 3 beaches independently based on what the warrant articles recommended. And what this policy really relies on, I think, is the ability, and I did want to correct one thing, Paul, about Brewster Beach, that every beach will rely on the ability to manage parking through either an entrance attendant or something to that effect. So even Brewster Beach, although it's not subject to any specific restrictions, we still are proposing to have a parking attendant there to manage the situation based on the anticipated increase in volume. So that's going to be sort of the gatekeeper, if you will, to each of the beaches. Now, when it comes to Cary and Albee Beach, those that were prescribed through the warrant articles, we're actually going to be doing checking of passes or dump stickers, one of the two, when you enter those facilities. But that pass checking will only take place between very specific dates and very specific times during those dates. So those dates are June 26th through August 15th, which are the peak season for Christine's crew. And then the times during those dates will be 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. And that's been pretty clearly defined in the ordinance. Outside of those hours, when we're checking the passes, the beach gates will be completely open in the sense that we will not be actively enforcing the resident or the specific restrictions of each individual beach. Technically, the beaches will still be residents only or guests only, depending upon the policy. But active enforcement will not be taking place through that gatekeeper or entrance attendant. For folks who might be watching that are residents, taxpayers, have a utility bill, whatever your situation might be, if you rent here in town, you'll be able to obtain either a dump sticker and use that, or you'll be able to obtain a beach pass through the Parks and Recreation office at their facility at Pop Whalen. We're going to be accepting either of those methods. We have a specific requirement for how many each household can get. We've come up with some pretty standard requirements there. The other piece is sort of a new piece, I think, is that we are going to be, through our entrance attendants, asking folks to carry out trash and supplying trash bags as needed. We wanted to try and have people take out their waste as they leave the facility, hopefully improving the environmental quality of the beach, making sure there's a little less work for our beach attendants that are hopefully going to be assisting with parking and enforcing rules. And I hope I've covered all the bases with that, Christine. Have I missed anything?
Just the lifeguards. So we will have no
you.
lifeguards at the beaches unless it is a Parks and Rec program. So that typically will go with Brewster Beach. That's where most of our programs are. Albee Beach, we do have sailing, but the sailing instructor will be a certified lifeguard as well.
Matt, but
and I think, I think the intent for the Brewster Beach gatekeeper would be, if there is an influx of people, to have that capacity to say, hey, we've reached our limit for parking. We need to close this facility until some people leave. So we'll have somebody there that can do that. It will be hard for lifeguards or someone who's on the beach to enforce that. So we're hoping that would help with the parking situation and the overflow.
But we are still keeping the curfew time in the ordinance. It says that's still going to stay. Where this
absolutely
nothing to do with the gatekeeper. There still is a curfew time.
Yes.
Correct. That's correct. So 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. is the curfew within the ordinance for anyone who might be listening. Yep, that's correct, Linda.
And we're gonna modify our signage to make sure that people understand all of this, so it's clear. And I think there was a reference made by, it might have been Suzanne or somebody, that we have got to kind of spread the word around town, get it in strategic locations when someone needs to know what's going on at the beaches. So we'll need to do that. I'm sure that's on the list of checkbox things of things we need to do. Mm-hmm. Okay.
And I think we have to make a place.
And I have the niggly. Go ahead, Linda. I'm sorry.
I think we also need to make sure we have a parking space for people who are from out of town or out of state who want to get on the Bridge Falls path from there. And I think we saw a picture. There are some people there today. They're parked, and the reason they're going to walk the path, and they have every right to park there and walk that path. So we are, and I know Christine wants a turnaround, but I would like to see if we can get a couple parking spaces there And if they get overcrowded, our gatekeeper can tell them that there's another spot down the trail that they can park.
Right, so we're in the process right now, as you see, I think pictures speak 1,000 words, so we can kind of see what we're talking about. But we're in the process of changing out our signs, even some of our beach rule signs that we need to update. They're all the way over when you walk into the beach. So we want to bring everything so it's at that gate, kind of gate area, what we're talking about, so people see it when they first come in. So that's the intent with that. And then I was over there today because there were a lot of cars parked over there. I was seeing if they were using the beach, and most people were the trail people. So what we just need to do is, I think, you know, a couple of spots that say no parking so I can do a quick turnaround if that's the thing, or maybe we can just, with having a gatekeeper, it will help. It will be a turnaround in the lot itself, and just put maybe trail parking or something like that. So we can actually designate spots. I know it's not paved, but I think we did a pretty good job in the parking lot using stones and cement blocks, and just, you know, I think having that person who can kind of push people to where they need to park, and then having that second attendant who's on the beach in the beginning, they'll help park people. So kind of like a fair style where they're saying, okay, you go park by that car, so we can get as many people as we can into the beach in that parking. And then once that parking lot is full, then the beach attendant can go to the beach and make sure people are following rules, trash is being picked up, bathrooms are checked, and all that. I did notice, Linda, when I was at LB Beach today, I have a porta potty, but it's on the inside of the beach. So I was thinking I might talk to the porta potty to bring it over by the trail more, so people can see it. And of course, with the COVID-19 and everything, we just need to discuss the bathrooms over there and when we're going to open those up. But until those are available, maybe we have that more able to be seen by the public to have that porta potty.
Sounds good. And I wonder whether we want to put on the signs when we say restricted to enacted by the Board of Selectmen, so they know that it was under our authority that these rules and this change took place. I think it gives you a little cover in it, that it was from the board that did.
Yeah, so that's what we're looking for with the signage. Some of it might be, I think some of our signs are a little bit too detailed, and then some of it doesn't have enough information. So I think that's what we're looking for, a proposal for the next meeting, so we can get that to you and then kind of get some input so we can get that all updated.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions from people?
Mr. Chairman, there was just one question in the chat box. I know it's not technically a public item, but it was about why the change in lifeguards. And Christine, correct me if I'm wrong, it's really based on the need to constrain ourselves within the existing budget, in addition to other liability reasons. That's the primary reason. Am I correct on that?
Correct, because this was this passed and the budget was already created for this year. We are working with the warrant article that said it would be no increase to the budget, and that's what I'm working with. For the future, it's something we could examine with the budget if we do something, but this is what we're doing for this season.
If I could just add on to that, in the 2020 budget process, there was lengthy conversations about lifeguards and the future of lifeguards. Christine has a difficult time filling the positions, and it was deeply discussed. There are also a number of communities around who have beaches without lifeguards. So while the lifeguards are a safety issue and it's a wonderful thing to have, at the end of the day, this was a decision that was being contemplated. However, the warrant articles pushed us over the edge in having to make the decision in going to gate attendants versus lifeguards.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or discussion? All right, I want to thank Matt and Christine and Linda for all the work they've done in getting us to this point now. So I'm assuming next Wednesday night we'll make a vote to hold a public hearing on the 20th. Is that correct, Mr. Pinio?
Yeah, so that is the intent. We will get that ball rolling and start working on the noticing for the meeting on the 20th.
Okay. All right, next on the agenda is other business. Do we have any other business for this evening?
I had just one comment that I've had some communication with John McDonald, and I think Paul has too. And he was looking for a list of projects that we get funding from the state that we felt we could lose, and then that was also forwarded to Jeb Bradley, and Jeb Bradley said that they would be willing to meet with us, and I think we should go forward with that. I don't know if you want to bring them to a Board of Selectmen's meeting. We've done that in the past, and give them the projects we're worried about. I know one that comes to my mind is the RIB loan. We have a SAG grant, and the last economic downturn, the state stopped paying us for about 4 years, which cost us, I think it was close to $500,000, and they never made that up. So I think we have to look at where we're vulnerable with our projects. My feeling is you bring them to a public meeting, you bring them to a board meeting, and we have that kind of a conversation. I think that gives the public gets to be part of it and see that we're really concerned about those things and are asking important questions.
I think that's a great idea. We've done it in the past, and I'd like to see us continue to do that. Even if we don't have any certain issue, sometimes it's nice just to have them come in and talk to us once or twice a year and keep us up to date. So I think that's a great idea.
Brad, I have, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, Dave Sunical, you wanted to say something?
Wasn't me. I think it might have been Jim.
Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, kind of piling on Linda's thought. A couple of weeks back, Dave Ford told us, and it was in our minutes, that he had been asked to generate a list of shovel-ready projects. And I guess my question would be, okay, where is the list? Because I think in addition to what John McDonald, well, let me back up. The governor the other day said that the state was cutting capital projects. The governor also said that they were looking to reduce operating costs. So that's going to come flowing downhill. And so that's, I think, why Linda jumped on that one and said, I think we need a list of vulnerabilities. But on the other hand, we're hearing through the governor's office and from our friends down in the 202 area code that there may be more stimulus activity on these, in quote, shovel-ready things. And Dave Ford told us that he got a ping from the state about that. So I guess it's two things. We need to get the list, and I think Jim and Matt are working on it. We need to get the list of the things that we could be vulnerable for, and then on the other hand, we need to get a list of things that if somebody were to say, if you could put a shovel in the ground, you can get some money. So we ought to sooner rather than later have those two pieces of paper, and then get Jeb and John and all the other people in a room. The other follow-up I had is we had mentioned that at our last meeting about Mr. Sims getting us some data information about his fundraising activity. I'm not here to get a status report on that, but it was in the minutes that we'd follow up on it. So I just want to know where that stands at some point. Maybe we can tee that up for the next time.
I just saw that I think he's going in front of the planning board. I just saw in the paper that I think, Matt, are you still there?
I am still here. Yep, I am still here. Mr. Sims is coming to the planning board and the ZBA just next week. And I know Jim is probably going to cover this in a second, but John is prepared to come to the selectmen and discuss his status. He provided us with a status report, and I'll let Jim speak to that.
Yeah, the question that we asked at the last one, and maybe Jim, I just got in front of you here, and I apologize, was, I mean, how's he doing on his fundraising? Does he have money in the bank? Is he ready to go? That's kind of where I wanted to go with this. And if that's where he's going to be, that's cool.
So Mr. Sims actually reached out to us this weekend. He wanted to present to the Board of Selectmen this evening. We advised him, no, agenda's set. So he will be presenting tentatively on the May 6th meeting, which is a week from tonight. Regarding Dave Ford and his shovel-ready projects and some projects which are vulnerable, Dave and I have had conversations. Dave and I will be having another conversation about it tomorrow. And lastly, regarding Senator Bradley and John McDonald coming in and speaking in front of this board, I guess my question would be, do you want to shoot to have them here for the May 6th or the May 20th Board of Selectmen's meeting?
I think the list drives that discussion.
So the list will most likely come out at the May 6th meeting. So that means we would be shooting for inviting them to the May 20th meeting. Is that what I'm hearing?
If that timetable works for you. You know, you got to get us the material. There's no need to meet until we've got the material.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think I agree with Linda. I think it'd be a waste of their time, and I don't want to suggest that we kind of push on them, but maybe we give them the list at the 6th and we say, come on back on the 20th after having noodled on it for a while, stewing on it, and tell us what you think.
Well, let me see what I can get done tomorrow. And from that point, I'll reach out to the chairman of the board and get some guidance at that point. How does that sound?
Perfect. Works for me.
Okay.
Yep, sounds good. Okay, do we have any other business tonight? Committee reports. Linda, we'll start with you.
Alrighty. I had a special events committee last night, 2020, and we looked at the amount of money we had and the possibility of whether we go forward with last night for 2020, and we've decided to go forward, whether it's in person or whether it's virtual. If we have to do some taping of events and then run them over community television or on some kind of a go-to-meeting program, we will do that. So last night, Wolf for 2020 will happen one way or another. I attended 3 emergency operation committee meetings. They're going along very well. We're well organized, and I've been very pleased to be part of that group. I attended an energy committee meeting, and they are moving forward with seeing if we can get some more municipal solar. And in the future, they'll develop a plan for electric charger stations for cars. I went to an EDC meeting. They were talking about what is happening in town and how do we welcome our seasonal residents to Wolfeboro. And I also attended the Chamber of Commerce webinar, which was outstanding. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Linda. Paul?
I've been following Linda around. I've been going to the Emergency Operations Center meetings as well, and they're unbelievable. The town is terribly well organized. It's amazing. It's amazing what they're doing. And I guess I have the vantage point of seeing what other locales in this country, in this world are doing. And I got to tell you, we should be should be damn proud of what these people are doing. They're selfless and they're doing hard work. Second, on the Energy Committee, I think I'd add to that. I think what the conversation really is, can we, as Linda said, can we find more places to embed solar, and how does that work? I think they need to sit down and spend more time with Barry and maybe with some of our business leaders. I think they need to get a little more traction on that, but good conversation. I did attend as well the chamber webinar. I thought it was interesting. It was very good, and I as well am paying a whole bunch of attention to a lot of input on what's going on in the public domain. And last night or the night before, I forget when it was, we kicked off our cable franchise agreement meeting. All hands on deck for that one. And I want to thank Matt for helping us populate the cloud with information about our existing franchise agreement and what we need to do. So more to come on that.
Thank you, Paul. Dave Senecal?
I've had no meetings, but we have a ZBA meeting coming up next Monday.
Thank you, Dave. Dave Bowers? You still with us, Dave?
His mic doesn't seem to be working.
Hey, Dave, I don't know if you've muted your mic. Okay, I'll go next. Actually, the only meeting I had was last week. We had a planning board meeting. We pretty much have the first round of applications that were going to come in when this all came on last month that we're going to be hearing on May 5th. So that's going to be interesting to see how this all works with those type of inputs during our virtual type meetings. So look forward to that. That was it for me. Dave Bowers, are you back on with us with the audio? No, guess not.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, there you go, Dave. We hear you now.
Hi, I've been interfacing with Mark Lush of the Wolfeboro Historical Society on Wolfeboro history, images, and learning a heck of a lot. He's very, very smart, and that's been very enjoyable.
All right, thanks, Dave. Next on is Town Manager's Report.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. First of all, one of the things that I believe that we've got to do immediately, we need the Board of Selectmen to meet as the trustees of the Libby. We've got to make some decisions what we're going to do with the Libby Museum this summer, whether we're going to open it, whether we're going to open it in a modified format, and have that initial discussion regarding the Libby Museum. As well, as you are all aware, we had some work done in the past year, and we're going to have to follow up with another meeting regarding the Libby about what we're going to do with that facility in the future, and decisions about funding. So I'd like to entertain a conversation at this point about trying to schedule a meeting as the trustees of the Libby Museum.
Can we do a meeting of the trustees of the Libby before we get into our regular Board of Selectmen's meeting? So in other words, for X amount, or we do it on another Wednesday? I would say those are the two options.
I like that idea. That makes a bunch of sense. Either do it, like pick 45 minutes before the Board of Selectmen's meeting and tee it up and do it.
Brad, would that work in your schedule, or would that be cutting it kind of tight?
That would make it tight. One other option, just as you were mentioning that, would it be possible to possibly do it at the end of our Selectmen's meeting if we have an easy agenda on the 6th? I don't know how much stuff we're gonna have come in over this next week here. If next week looks light, can we do it afterwards?
So we'll look at the agenda. If it looks light on this for Friday, we'll tentatively pencil it in. If not, then maybe we can shoot for the 13th. Does that sound like a starting point at this time?
Works for me.
Yeah, works for
It
me.
would work better for me.
6th, though, Jim, aren't we having a prayer session over our financials on the 6th?
That is correct.
Dookie.
Yep. Okay. So we'll approach it
Okay.
that way.
So I'll get back in touch with you, Mr. Chairman, about that.
Okay.
Jim, my mic cut out, and I apologize. Did you also mention the clerk in your in this conversation as well?
I did not, but we can. I can have a conversation with Christine offline relative to the Clark complex and get back to you on that. Relative to the Clark complex, we have awarded the bid for painting that complex, so that is underway. Those funds will be coming out of the Building Maintenance Capital Reserve Fund. As well, another item that may be coming out of the Building Maintenance Capital Reserve Fund, the roof at Dockside is in poor condition. As a result, Dave Ford and Adam Tasker have reached out for quotes. I believe they received one quote regarding re-roofing of that facility. So that's something that will be forthcoming. I did receive a correspondence about a question regarding the 5 cases of COVID-19 in the town of Wolfeboro. One of the items that's occurred relative to our emergency management team, the emergency management team for the town and the emergency management team for Huggins Hospital have merged at this point. So we're working under a unified command model. So information which comes out relative to COVID-19 is now a joint statement between Huggins Hospital and the town's emergency operations team. So the question that I received was the breakdown of those cases and how many are active, how many have recovered. This really falls under the purview of Huggins Hospital. So I reached out to my partner at Huggins Hospital, the public information officer there, and the joint statement that we developed. We do not have the specific information regarding how many of the 5 cases in Wolfeboro are active or any breakdown other than what is provided by the state at this point. The second question that was asked regarding COVID-19, and again, this was referred to my partner at Huggins. What is the role in tracing the contacts of people who have contracted the virus? At this point, when people are tested at Huggins Hospital, the sample is sent off to a lab, and the lab results are shared with New Hampshire Department of Health and Human Services and the ordering physician. The physician will contact the patient to discuss the results and medical needs. New Hampshire Department of Health and Human Services will contact the patient to start and any leads regarding potential tracing. So that's kind of how that process works. One other thing that is noteworthy, I believe at this point as well, regarding our emergency management meeting this morning, was the turnaround time for these tests have greatly improved in the state. And additionally, there's an additional test center that is set up in our region. However, people need to obtain a doctor's order to be able to get that test done. At this point, Mr. Chairman, that's all that I really have for the board.
Okay, thank you. Questions from the press? Alyssa, are you still with us?
I am. Okay. Okay,
You have it? Yeah, go ahead.
okay, well, my questions, I sent in this morning on the COVID-19, and I'm glad I did, because I can see that you have to do a lot of coordinating to make sure everyone is on the same page, and your answer is coordinated now with Huggins. So I appreciate that. I've been following the numbers, as all of you are, and the figures are coming from health, the Health and Human Services. And I follow on the NHPR site, and they give maps and graphs. And it's just been in the last few days that Wolfeboro moved up from the 1 to 4 category to the 5 to 10 category. So we're different than our surrounding towns. A lot of them are in the 1 to 4. So I think that's worthy of note. And, we all are watching, and it shows us that we all need to be careful and follow all the protocols. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. I guess we're ready for a second edition of our public input. Is there anybody out there, or has anything come into us electronically, Matt, since our meeting started?
I haven't received anything. I'm not sure if anyone else has. I have not.
I have not either, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Very well then. So we have no need for non-public. So I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
We have 2 motions and a second to adjourn. So
That's good.
That's good. So we'll do a roll call vote. Linda Murray,
Yes.
Paul O'Brien,
Yes.
Dave Senical,
Yes.
Dave Bowers,
Yes.
and Brett Harriman. Yes. Thank you, everybody, and good night.
Good night.
Good night.
See you next week.
Thank you. Have a great night.